Alright, so here's my giant tower of reeds and reed stuff. So I just want to go over what I use all this stuff for, and then I'll go into more detail. So just right here at the bottom, I have some sandpaper. You can just pick that up at any hardware store. Over here, some clarinet reeds, soprano sax reeds, even of different make, Vaz, Van Dorn, different kinds of Van Dorn reeds over here. I have some hydrogen peroxide. I'm going to go into some great detail with that. I have this clear cup that's right up here. I have this BG Reed Saver and Performer thingy that came with the BG ligature that I got. Some Reed Rush that's right over here. And up here, last but certainly not least, I have this kind of emery board type of thing that I got. I actually bought this on purpose just to get this, but I had to get some kind of fingernail kit or something like that. So I'll go into detail about all of these products. So let's move on. All right, so as far as reeds go, I have a self-monitoring system here. This is called a Hearback. I don't particularly care for it, but it does the job. But as far as getting your reeds to play, one trick that you can do is basically adjust your treble and your volume to where your reeds basically sound the way in your headphones, the way you would want them to sound acoustically. And you'd be amazed as to how different it's going to feel when you do that. Also, your sound guy will ultimately wind up making you sound like whatever he thinks you're supposed to sound like. So if you go out and you buy your super bright, whatever kind of mouthpiece, the sound guy could, in theory, wind up making you sound like a classical saxophonist with that kind of tone, at least anyway. So I don't really put a whole lot of emphasis on like these super bright mouthpieces and all that kind of stuff when it's so easy for somebody to just adjust the sound and make you sound like whatever. So as far as reeds go, making these kinds of adjustments for a reed that works, but maybe doesn't quite play or sound right, here's a trick that you can do to get you on your way. All right, let's continue. All right, so as you can see right here, ladies and gentlemen, we have some sandpaper. This one is 400 and this one is 1000 grit. So you can pick this up at your local hardware store. And for all intents and purposes, I only ever really use sandpaper to do two things. That is to seal the back of the reed to stop air from flowing through the reed, because that's just wasted energy. And I also use it to sand the back of the reed, and this is to make sure that the reed is actually very, very flat. So that way it sits flat on the table of the mouthpiece. Alright, so when I go to sand the back of a reed, I always make sure that I've played on it to where the reed is wet. The entire reed is wet and the reed is no longer adjusting to the moisture. So that way, whatever position the reed is in, it's going to be set there and then sanded, instead of sanding a completely dry reed that may have already warped a little bit. You pretty much want to have it in its playable position and then just sand it. And the only thing I do, I'm going to keep it in this little plastic thing here just to show you the minimal amount of movement that I use when I'm doing this. I basically just take the reed, I set it here like this, and then I just move it back. I lift it, set it here again, and I move it back. Now if the reed just sticks, it's because it's wet, and that also means you're using too much pressure. You just want to use the minimum amount of pressure, set it, and then just slide it back. I can already feel that the back of this is much flatter and it's going to sit much more even on the table of the mouthpiece. And as far as the grit of the sandpaper, I've seen people not even use sandpaper at all. They just use regular like notebook paper for this kind of thing, and also with a much more aggressive motion because this paper is so much finer. I've seen people just kind of go back and forth like this. This is more polishing a reed, and this is more sanding a reed to get it flat. Okay, so right here I have some reed rush. You want to be careful going through customs with stuff like this, because it looks like little smokable types of things, and it has rush in it. So yeah, let's take a look at this. So this reed rush that I have here is well over 10 years old. So as far as using it on the reed, you pretty much want to make absolutely minimum amounts of adjustments on various parts of the reed. Now, there's a lot of books out there that'll tell you sanding this part gives you this sound, sanding this part and this part gives you this kind of sound. In all honesty, you're ultimately just going to wind up coming up with your own technique for all of this. I don't do any of that for my reeds. My basic philosophy is to basically work a reed down. There was this little thing called like Tamagotchis, I think that was the name of it, but it was this little toy, and in it was this digital animal, and you had to like feed it and walk it and play with it and all this other stuff, and then it would grow up, and if you didn't do all that stuff, it would die, and basically you'd lose. Then you just start up another one and do the whole thing, and the whole trick was to see how long you could keep this thing alive. And people lost their minds over it, like Tickle Me Elmos and Kirby's and all that kind of stuff. But you need to treat your reeds the same way. I generally work with reeds that are too stiff, and then I play them down. And the method that I use for playing them down generally starts with me playing them every single day and hitting them with as many frequencies as possible. Multiphonics, low end, Altissimo, all of it. I need to teach this reed how to be a good reed for me. So I'm also going to show you some other techniques that I do with mouthpieces that will get you on your way of getting a whole lot of reeds, not just to play, but to last for a very, very long time. Okay, so in my possession here, I have two of what is mostly the exact same mouthpiece. Now, somewhere between the I and the J, Selmer changed some things. These aren't exactly identical, but you'll understand the point that I'm going to make, which is this one is an I, this one is a J. So the J is a little more open than the I here. So when I play reeds for a long time and the reed starts to get thin, that's when I switch over to the more open facing, and it's like having a new reed on. That same reed that didn't play on the smaller facing now feels like a new reed on the more open facing mouthpiece. Now, I don't just duplicate the same mouthpiece. I have some mouthpieces that have some slightly different qualities to it. Some mouthpieces will play a little darker, some a little brighter, but I generally try and swap the reed with the mouthpieces that pretty much gives me the type of uniform sound that I want, or the desired sound that I want. This is absolutely one of the most efficient ways of just getting the maximum amount of life out of your reeds. Let's move on. Using this kind of technique, depending on how many mouthpieces you have, you can basically just run a reed down the line from soft to more open for a very long time. I'm coming up close to 2 years with the reed, and I've basically just been cycling it up. So this is a product that came with the BG ligature that I bought, and I'd never even seen or heard of something like this, but it's this little patch here that you can put on your reeds, and it's supposed to extend the life and make your reeds better and all that kind of stuff. So when you open this up, it has some product information that's here. It has some stuff that you can scan, more label stuff on the back, but this is the product here. Hopefully I can get this in the light just right, but there's 3 patches that are right here. I'm going to try this out, and then I'll play that for you, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. kind of noticed a big difference. I didn't think I would notice anything. Okay, so this thing is like a emery brick that I got with this product here, this Obey Your Body. I bought this at the mall. I only really wanted this thing, but it came with this and probably something else. You can pick this up at the mall. But I pretty much use this like an emery board. I know that some people are like deathly afraid to use emery boards. For all intents and purposes, this is kind of like a hard, spongy type of material here, which is just soft enough, mostly for me to use this to just seal the back of a reed, or to just use the weight of it on a reed just to kind of seal it. I'm not really even trying to take any of the wood or the cane off of here, just using enough of the weight of it just to seal. If I do get some grains here, then I'll just use my finger and I'll just rub it this way just to seal the reed, to stop air from flowing through it. There you go. This reed is one of the greatest reeds ever. It's super soft, and you can see I've just a lot of markings here, but I've been playing this reed for well over a year and a half, and the thing just won't die. I have full 4-octave range with this. This is my go-to reed with my go-to mouthpiece. But this is what I've been doing to restore reeds, using hydrogen peroxide. I usually fill this enough to where I can get the entire reed to just set in here. I'll just put the reed in full strength like that, and as you can see, there is an immediate reaction upon doing that. So what I like to do is just take some type of object. I usually use this reed thing here, and just make sure that the reed is completely submerged, just like that, in the hydrogen peroxide. Also making sure that the bottom of the reed isn't touching the bottom of the cup here. I'll let that soak in there until these bubbles stop bubbling. I just went ahead and put my other reeds in there also, and I know it looks like, because the light is bending, that they're touching the bottom, but they aren't. So at this particular point, you can see how much that bubble action has died down. So all I'll do at this point is just take them out, just rinse them off in some lukewarm water, some cool water, and then I'll put them back in the case, in the reed case here, and then we are good to go. Alrighty.